He burned the evidence and vanished. It was late at night, and he needed to get rid of the evidence. What evidence? The evidence of a crime he had committed. But what crime? Well, that depends on how much you want to find out in this video. I'll start off with a bit of backstory first, then move into the main story. And if you like it, please remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our new releases. Back to the story now. In 2004, a woman called Sarah Yarbrough went missing from Knoxville, Tennessee. Her family never saw her again, and neither did the police, or so they thought. They found no trace of her until one day they received an anonymous tip that she was living in Florida under the name Christina. The police went to Florida and asked all the right questions. They found a Christina living there, and when they brought her back to Tennessee for questioning, she told them she was the Sarah Yarbrough they were looking for. She said she had changed her name because she wanted a fresh start after getting a divorce, but something didn't add up. She knew too much about the investigation for someone who was just a witness. For example, she knew where the police were looking for her body and what her hair and eye color were, so she must have been involved in her disappearance. She was arrested and taken to jail where she stayed for 3 years. Then one day she was found dead in her cell, having taken her own life. But here's where things get even weirder. She had written 2 letters before her death. One was addressed to her boyfriend at the time of her arrest, whom we will call Billy, and the other was to her family. The letter to Billy started, "I love you," right? "Don't let anyone hurt you." And it ended, "I hope that one day you can forgive me. I know that I messed up, and I'm really sorry." Then came the most shocking line in the middle of the letter, "I am not Sarah. I never was." It seems she wasn't even the person the police were looking for. But who was? And where was Sarah Yarbrough, or was she even alive? When the police searched Christina's cell, they found another letter addressed to Billy, this one saying that she had information regarding Yarbrough's whereabouts. It also contained a postscript saying she was sorry and would take the secret to her grave. This time the police took the lead. They had enough to arrest Billy, who, when questioned, confessed to killing Sarah Yarbrough. According to him, he was dating Christina at the time, and she was planning on leaving him. So he lured Yarbrough to his house by pretending to be her boyfriend. When she arrived, Christina was already there and she helped him attack Yarbrough, after which he buried her body in his backyard. He led the police to where he had buried her, but her body was nowhere to be found. What happened next is hard to believe. As the months passed without finding a body, people started to think that maybe Billy had made the whole thing up. The media called him a liar, a fraud, and everything else you can imagine. He sued several media outlets for slander, but lost each case because they could prove what he said was false. He lived his life as a convicted murderer, even though Sarah Yarbrough was never found, and there was no physical evidence to tie him to the crime. Then, almost 13 years later, his neighbor decided to renovate her backyard. While digging up her garden, she found human remains and immediately called the police. Could this be the end of the mystery? We hope so. But first they need to do some work. The bones had been there for a long time, so they needed experts to identify them. They eventually identified the remains as Sarah Yarbrough's, but there was still no evidence to prove Billy's guilt. So what happens now? You might be thinking that it's over for Billy, but it isn't. No physical evidence means he could easily argue that he was innocent. The only evidence against him was the testimony of the supposed victim herself, who was now dead. If they couldn't prove he killed Yarbrough, they couldn't charge him. There was nothing else tying him to the crime. The neighbors were shocked. For years they had been living next to a killer and hadn't known it. But that was not the end of the story. The police weren't ready to give up yet. They combed through every piece of evidence, trying to find something. Anything that would tie Billy to the murder. Months turned into years, but they had nothing. Finally, they got a break when they found a video of Billy burning something in his backyard. But what? The video was too blurry to tell for sure, but they had a hunch it was important. They sent the video to a forensic team who managed to make it clearer. What they saw shocked them. They had finally found their answer. In the video, they saw Billy burning clothes. Clothes. Which clothes? The very same clothes he was wearing the day Yarbrough disappeared. But why? Why would he burn them? Probably wanted to destroy the evidence. Evidence of what? Of the murder. That meant he was guilty. The police were ecstatic. At last, they had proof. All these years they had been searching for this piece of evidence. The problem was, how could they use it? The clothes had been burned, which meant they couldn't run DNA tests on them. They could try to go after Billy, but without solid evidence, they would lose in court. Just as they were about to give up, one of the forensic experts had an idea. She had an old sample of Billy's DNA from when they first arrested him. Maybe she could compare it to the DNA from the ashes. It was a long shot, but worth a try. A few days later, she got the results. It was a match. The DNA from the ashes was the same as Billy's. Couldn't argue with that. This time, the police were ready. They had enough to charge Billy and take him to court. During the trial, they played the video, showing him burning his clothes. Then they showed the DNA results, proving that they were his. After hearing all the evidence, the jury found him guilty. Finally, justice was being served. But what was the sentence? Guilty of what? Murder? Attempted murder? Kidnapping? Or something else? Billy's face was pale as the judge read the verdict. The judge said he had no choice but to sentence Billy to life in prison without parole. Billy's face fell. He had known this was coming, but hearing it out loud was different. He was going to spend the rest of his life behind bars. As the police led him away, Billy turned to the camera and said, "I have nothing to say." The family of Sarah Yarborough were overjoyed. After 18 years, justice had finally been served. They had waited so long for this moment, and now it was here. They knew that nothing could bring back their daughter and sister, but at least Billy would rot in jail for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, the people in Billy's neighborhood were angry. How could they have lived next to a monster like that and not known it? They should have listened to their gut instincts when they heard about Yarborough's disappearance. Maybe if they had done something, Sarah would still be alive. But that was just speculation. Nobody knew for sure. Now, the only question left was, where was Sarah's body? Billy had led the police to the wrong place when they first arrested him. So where was it really? Was it still in his backyard? The police searched, but it was too late. The construction had ruined the yard and there was no sign of a body. Where was it? We told you the beginning of the story, and now we're here. He had burned the evidence and vanished. He had made a huge mistake. He shouldn't have tried to cover up the crime. If he hadn't, maybe he wouldn't be in this situation now. But what do you think? Do you think he did it alone? Why do you think so? Let us know in the comments below. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave us a thumbs up. And remember to subscribe so you won't miss any of our new videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.